Sex and Violence with Rebel Girl is presented by UFC Fight Pass. See the best that UFC Fight Pass has to offer on the Fight Pass 24/7 stream, offering a constant channel of historic fight action all day, all night. Tune in, sit back, and enjoy a network created by fans for fans. Step into our world. UFCFightPass.com.
Sex and violence. Sex and violence. Sex and violence. Sex and violence.
Hey guys, welcome back to Sex and Violence with Rebel Girl, presented by UFC Fight Pass, the show that interviews top-level MMA fighters and other experts in their fields about love, dating, romance, and that all-too-taboo subject, sex. I'm your host, Ashley Rebel Girl Evans Smith. Now let's talk about sex and violence.
What's happening, hot stuff?
What is up, my naughty listeners? And we are back in the studio with a new episode. I'm really excited because this is our second video episode, full video episode. Not quite available, but we are testing the waters right now. We're going back and forth with edits, and this episode will be available for the full podcast will be available very soon, and so will the last one, which was episode 132 with Sabina Mazzo. Super awesome chick. We had a great time talking. But yeah, we'll probably just kind of fix some of the tweaks, and we're still going to put these out even though they won't be as clean as we're working towards. But anyway, if you're listening in the car to the audio podcast or as you run or on the treadmill or something, you probably don't fucking care. But anyway, let me do what I always do. Every week I tell you the Ash update, what's going on with me, and something really cool is happening next weekend. If you're a long-term listener, you know that I have a side gig working for Up Next Fighting, and that is a local MMA promotion here in Southern California. It's Up Next Fighting 6 next Saturday, March 25th, and it's 80s night, and I almost don't even want to tell you guys. I don't know, what do you think, Zol? Should I tell them what I'm gonna dress up as, or should I be...
Will we have an episode before it?
We will.
Yeah, that's when we'll...
Okay, all right, so tune in next week to hear what 80s icon.
Up on your thing.
Yeah, I'll be
See
doing interviews next Saturday night in full 80s attire. It's gonna be pretty fun. I'm gonna stop talking about it because I'm gonna give it away.
Shout out to that promotion, man.
Yeah, I mean, Zol could tell you, and I think most people in Southern California, these fight companies, these fight organizations, you know, they come and they go, but this one's really doing it different. And, you know, my favorite part, okay, I'm glad we're actually bringing this up, is they do collaborations with different causes, and the one that they've been working with, and I'm really, you know, involved with as well, is Stop Bad Meds. And all it's doing is, it's a public service announcement, headlined actually by Danny Trejo, Machete. And it's basically bringing awareness to, there's a lot of fake online pharmaceutical drugs, and you're probably hearing about a lot of fentanyl deaths. That is something major, but it's everything. It's ED pills, it's you know, cancer medicine, it's anything, you know, nothing's safe, you know. And you think maybe
I looked down, they had everything down to hair growth medicine.
It's crazy, and it just takes one bad ingredient to kill you. And all you have to do is go to safe.pharmacy, you know, enter this prescription and check, you know, if it's legit or not, and you can be saving your lives or your family's lives. And so what Up Next Fighting is doing, they basically are collabing with this PSA to just shine a light on this and get the word out, because that's all it really is. The more people know, the more lives are saved, and that's fucking it, you know. So It's a really cool organization to be a part of for that reason. It's entertaining. They put on really, really great fights, and then they love sprinkling in some kind of like pomp and circumstance. You know, they had like a Michael Jackson Thriller show one time. I know they're doing something special for this event as well. So check that out. All their social media handles are Up Next Fighting, you know, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter.
Packed house every time, too.
It really is. Yeah, they sell out almost every time. So if you get your tickets, upnextfighting.com, there's probably maybe general admission is still available, but the general admission usually sells out. And yeah, it's going to be a fun night. Other than that, I mean, there's 16 fights on the card too. And the main event is the one I'm the most excited for. It's Francisco Cisco Rivera taking on Chris the Real Deal Beal, both former UFC veterans. And it's just going to be a really cool night because you have amateurs starting out the night, which those guys, if anybody watches amateur fighting, you know, sometimes that's some of the most entertaining fights. They're just like swinging for the fences, and the technique may not be there, but the heart always is.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I guess that's the best way to put it.
Yeah, and I'm actually going to be doing the commentary for some of those fights, as well as doing the post-fight interviews and into the pros as well. And working with the Schmo again, if you guys are fans. He has become my co-host, and he is so fun to work with. The Schmo, if you haven't heard of him, you've probably been living under a MMA rock.
Yeah, you need to look that dude up.
Yeah. Okay, guys, I'm going to get to the guest, but every week I remind you that if you want to support the show, you can do that a couple ways. That is my exclusive content site. It is like OnlyFans, but better. It's ashleyrebelgirl.com. That's where all the sexy, naughty videos are, and all that money also goes to paying studio and whatnot to keep the promotion going. So help us out, or you can also buy some merch at our website, and that's already said that. That is Sex Violence. Wow, my bad. Our website is sexviolencewithrebelgirl.com, and our email is sexandviolencepodcast@gmail.com. Go buy some merch to help us out or support the show. And if you want to email us anything, it can be a guest suggestion, sponsor the show. And I've just had some of you guys write in and tell me your thoughts. And I really like that. I really, really do. Nobody's ever written anything bad. If you guys just want to vent and you think I suck, whatever, I'll probably read it, but I don't know if I will take it into consideration. And then the rest of the whatnot I always want to tell you guys is please rate and review the show. It takes 2 seconds, but it helps us move up in the charts, and that lets more people actually get to watch the show. And so that helps us out. All right, guys, let's talk to our sponsors. Okay, guys, let me tell you about our newest sponsor of Sex and Violence Podcast with Rebel Girl, EA Tax Resolutions. They are professionals that will help with tax issues and bookkeeping. Whether you're looking to settle your tax debt for less than you owe or have back taxes that you need to file, EA Tax Resolutions can help you out. Don't believe me? Check out their YouTube channel, EA Tax Resolutions, where they show exactly how they've helped clients in the past save thousands in taxes. Not only does EA Tax Resolutions help with tax issues, but with bookkeeping. Now, bookkeeping is commonly overlooked by small businesses, myself included, as not being the most important. However, this is very crucial come tax time. Instead of scrambling for receipts, all your information is organized and, most importantly, accurate. So, if you have a small business and you're looking for a bookkeeper, EA Tax Resolutions can help you out. And remember, if you want to learn more about EA Tax Resolutions, you can visit their YouTube channel, EA Tax Resolutions, or call them at their 800 number, 1-800-245-0596. Again, 1-800-245-0596. Or visit them at their website, eataxresolutions.com. Today's guest is one of the most successful and diversified fighters in the history of combat sports, having competed professionally in 4 different sports. He's the former number 3 middleweight in the UFC, a second-degree black belt in Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, an undefeated professional boxer, and an undefeated professional bare-knuckle boxer. He's won his last 8 fights in a row by knockout, and he's the reigning bare-knuckle fighting championship heavyweight world champion. We talk about spreading yourself too thin as an athlete, owning businesses while competing, crazy, the theme of mixed martial artists, mastering your own mind, using ADD as a superpower, passion and purpose over financial goals, being single is a problem, figuring out codependency, 6 months of monk mode in an RV, slow and low, that is the tempo, breath work to expand mind and spirituality, and much more. Here is your guest, Alan the Talent Belcher. We're here, Alan the Talent. Now, are you still the Talent as a BKFC guy, or is that just an MMA nickname?
I don't know. I guess I think that, I mean, that's honestly, the Talent is like a nickname I gave myself a long time ago.
Okay.
And there was a time where I would try to phase it out, and I was like, maybe I should let that go. And I'm like, nah, whatever, just embrace it. But yeah, I think when in BKFC they announced me as that.
Yeah, I'm like,
So,
okay, I'm 35. I'm like,
not
when am I
really.
not going to be a rebel girl? When am I a rebel woman? I'm like, no, I think I'll always be a rebel girl.
Yeah,
I can be
yeah,
45.
exactly. Yeah, your nickname just kind of like sticks with you, and at some point you just got to be like, that's got to be the one. You can't change it at this point.
Yeah. Well, you've been doing the competing on the highest level for a long time. Actually, I did my little dig in. My partner, he's kind of a MMA nerd. He knows like stats, and he's like, "Oh, Alan Belcher, I remember, like back in the day." And I'm looking up my stats, and I'm like, "Well, I don't remember him because his era was right before I got into the UFC. I think your last UFC fight was 2015, and then I got in there December like 2014. So it's just like we
Yeah,
like tagged hands. You're like, I'm out. I'm like, I'm in. So
yeah,
you did this amazing 15 fight tenure with the UFC. You took a hiatus, and then you came back as a bare knuckle fighter. But could you
yeah.
just jump into that just a little bit? I know that's a long-winded story, but I just want to know what kind of transformation went on in that time frame.
Yeah, man, it really is. I mean, I really could go super deep in it, but I mean, the basic idea is that I got to a point in the UFC. See, well, I started in UFC very young, and I feel like that's probably a thing I see with like I see this with a lot of fighters, but I would say Conor McGregor. That's what I feel about Conor McGregor is like this super young, not very many fights, get in there, and then all of a sudden you're trying to go all the way to the top, and it's like your mental and physical development isn't catching up to your ego.
Mm.
And that was kind of like my demise is like I got into the top 10 pretty fast, and then I spent 5 or 6 years in the top 10, only getting a couple fights a year. And then I had a break back in 2010, 11 was like the time where I had eye injuries.
Hmm.
So like a lot of people remember that where I had eye surgeries, and that kind of put me on the sideline. It kind of ended my career for a minute. So mentally, I've been out of the game twice. So like one, and I was just like, boom, done, out of it. And about a year and a half after that, I finally felt to a point where I could get back into training. I'm like, okay, now I could spar, and immediately got some fights and stuff. And I think that even just that whole experience made me grow a little bit as a fighter.
The eye
And I came
injury
back.
experience?
Yeah, it did. Yeah, because I just learned a lot about myself. I got to experience that, the feeling of like, man, I was on top, now it's over. I mean, what's my purpose in life?
Yeah.
What is this all about? And I really thought deeply about it. And so I got back in it, and I attacked it with the vengeance, and I grew a lot, and I got on a win streak. And really at the end, it was kind of a mixture of not understanding that the weight cut was really hurting my health, and it's not necessarily, I would even say, the weight cut. My where I was mentally in my life with everything that I had going on I had a rocky marriage, and I had new babies, very small. And I had really got into a lot of business. Like you see even a lot of fighters nowadays getting into as much business as they can.
Yeah.
Right. Why? Because that's part of why we do this, is to climb some type of hierarchy in the world and to become more successful. And financial is part of that. So to me, I was doing well, but I couldn't really see, as a young man, I couldn't see that if I just stuck it out and got that belt, then I would have everything in the palm of my hands. So on the way, I started to kind of like get sidetracked with projects and business ventures. And I mean, just to mention a few things I did is I didn't just open one gym. I had one mega successful gym, opened up to 4 at one time, started a consulting company, and many other things, lots of different projects and stuff to try to make the millions of dollars that I felt like that I was, destined to make. Or
and
whatever.
This is still in your MMA career.
This is smack dab in the middle of being a top contender in the top 10.
I'm over here like, I don't even want to like do a weekly podcast because I don't want to take away from my training and my recovery. You know what I mean? And I can't imagine pulling myself so fucking thin that I have these business, like, that's wild. And only someone who understands what it takes to train for a professional highest level in the world MMA fight understands how crazy you are for like even attempting that. But continue, sir. Continue.
No, you're 100% right. And I think crazy is the right idea. I mean, that's kind of the theme of MMA fighters, and kind of the theme of just successful people in general, and champions of it. There's something that's not quite right. And then,
I say it all the time. I'm like, fighting brings out some of the craziest and damaged people, but it's also a very it collects people, but it's very healing community as well, as weird as it sounds, because it's like MMA fighting, but it's like it can really put together some broken people.
Yes. Yeah. I think when done correctly and with the right guidance too, which I will, I'll never blame my guidance. I feel like instead I would have been a much more, like a shell of what I was, and I would have been a lot worse off, and a lot more scattered, a lot less successful, and a lot more degenerate if I didn't have the guidance and everything. I would probably, I really think that probably my mentors and my focus with UFC probably kept me out of prison.
That's so
honestly.
Good. Did you have any mentors when you were having all these different businesses and you were still in your career? Like, did you have a manager that could say, hey, you're not, you need to focus on one thing? And
I would say, the old me was very egotistical. The old me was very hard-headed, and I think those things go hand in hand, right? Like the ego and the hard-headedness. And so I was like typical, you couldn't tell me anything, but I think it was enough guidance to keep, to help me be somewhat successful or whatever. And I knew in the back of my mind that I was spreading myself too thin, honestly. And it might seem like something that's not that big of a deal, but I know that it is. I know I've discovered in this career that the mind is the most important thing. And that's really where I've kind of put my major focus. I've kind of made my life's work and my focus into mastering my own mind as opposed to being a champion. And I really think that that's what led to this streak that I'm on. It led to this bare knuckle belt. It's leading. Now there's tons of new doors opening. I feel like it's my focus on mastering my mind and developing myself further that has allowed
Got
that
you to this
happen.
level.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And when back in the day, it was more of I had more of a instant gratification type of mindset.
Yeah.
That was very shallow and very focused on like, I want it now and I'll do this. It was very all over the place, very ADD.
Okay.
And from whatever, my brain issues are and from trauma or damage or whatever, ADD was kind of like a big part of me going down to the lowest levels in my life a couple times. And it took me a while to figure that out. I was really against getting any type of help in that area. I just really didn't want to. I didn't even want to. I thought that, well, I knew somehow that the way that I operated was a superpower, but I didn't have it tamed.
Okay.
If that makes sense. But, that was always my excuse is to don't think of this as a weakness. I have a superpower. But although at the same time it was hurting people, it was hurting other people, it was hurting myself. So,
I really want to ask about that, but I want to let you tell your story because I want to figure out, why did you retire in 2015? Why did you come back when you did? I know you're saying right now that you did a deep dive into the mental aspect, and then that's what got you to the successful level with BKFC now. But what happened between those businesses and you deciding, you know what, I got to retire?
I think it's kind of like a deep thing to answer. I think the biggest thing that probably caused my retirement was not recognizing that those last couple of hard fights were really just beginning stages or the middle of the road of tests that I should have overcome mentally and grew to the person that I am now. But it's all part of the process either way, and it's all kind of equated to like where I am now.
It's come full circle for you regardless. I just everything has pretty much come full circle. You think you were saying how everything kind of happens in due time, whether or not you were going to retire then, or what helped you back then.
Yeah, well, I guess I'm looking at it in terms of like if I could go, if I had it to do over again, it was if I had the guidance like that. Those were tests. Those were times where I really needed the growth. But what I did in a way was kind of just went down a different path, and I almost ran away from it in a way. Like I got to a point to where I felt like I can't make this weight anymore. It's it's really hurting my performance. Maybe this is time. And I'll also listen to a lot of the wrong people too, not to place any blame on any, person in general, but like the idea that I got from, just people that are surrounding me is like, basic type of thing. Not that there's anything malicious about it or anything, but sometimes people will just encourage you to be satisfied to where you are and to realize that you put in a great career. Look how far you came from, a small town, and you worked your way up. You've done a really good job. I can see that it's really hurting you that you didn't get that UFC title or whatever, but you have done a great job. Like, don't keep hurting yourself. You have, had 2 surgeries on your eye, detached retinas, and don't, it's okay to just do something else. And I kind of, at the time I felt like it was the right thing to do. And I started to get more involved in my business and got further and further away from fighting to where finally I was just like, I'm not going to fight anymore. I'm going to have to face this at some point. So I need to face this at this age, So my last UFC fight, I was 29, and just feeling like, when you're at different points of your life, whenever you're 25, you're 30, you're 35, like you always feel old at those times.
Yeah.
You can't, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then you look back and you're like,
God damn.
man, I had a lot that I could have done,
Yeah.
So, I started going down a different path, and that's why, I retired. I had some success in another area, but, long story short, in that time that I was out of the game mentally, what I learned was that it's not always about the end goal of the money or the success or the whatever, even providing this whatever lifestyle for your kids or whatever. It's more about the passion and the heart that goes into it. And to really be happy, you're not, it's hard to have a goal. And I know this might work for some people, but from my experience and what I've seen, that most people that have a financial goal or a goal of success or whatever, when they get there, that it's not good enough. And it's really about finding the passion and a deeper connection. If you're doing the wrong thing, even if you are making money and you are making moves, if you're doing the wrong thing, you will eventually get severely burned out on it, or you'll eventually, it'll drive you to a really dark place. If you're not lined up with what you're trying to do with a deeper meaning of what you're doing.
Can I ask what did you find that was your deeper meaning? Obviously it's different for everybody.
For me, it's from when I took my focus from myself and began to put it on helping other people, and especially my own family and my kids. And as I started to see my kids grow up, and I got a divorce not long after stopping with the UFC. So within the next couple of years, I wanted to come back in the back of my mind. But just where I was in my life, it just kind of led somewhere else, And so my kids were really small, and I feel like the divorce really, it hurts people, worse than you understand with a lot of people, because you see it's a very common thing.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But it's also it's a very damaging thing, So I would, if I was talking to my younger self, or what I've learned is like that relationships are very, very important, because they can be very helpful or they can be very hurtful. So, that whole thing was very, very interesting. I learned a lot about myself.
I've got to ask, because this is the main general, topic of love, romance, and all that. You mentioned getting divorced and, you having kids and all that. Looking back now, you would have put more emphasis into the relationships while you were actively fighting in the UFC. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I think so. I think that relationships, for what I've learned about being in a relationship, is that it has to be intentional from the beginning. I don't know if that really makes sense, but it's once you're in it, and once you have, you've been in it for a while and it starts to get serious, it's hard to adjust anything at that point. It's something that you have to be intentional on and get yourself. You have to know, if you can understand yourself and understand what you need out of someone else or whatever, then you can start to come together. You can find that person, right? You can attract that person, and then you can build something from the very beginning.
Yeah.
And I think Um, I think that a lot of relationships are just they come together for the wrong reasons, and then all of a sudden you're in this serious thing, and then you're having kids and all this, and you know what I mean. It
Yeah.
needs to be more intentional on what you're doing. So by the time you realize it's falling apart, you realize that you're too deep in it, and you're just trying to make it work, and then it's getting worse. Now you got kids involved and all this type of stuff. So
Yeah.
it gets really messy in that regard. So
You were married while you
uh,
were actively fighting in the UFC
oh
years ago. What is your status now? You're a bare knuckle boxing champion. I just like
yeah.
to ask because I always like to see what kind of support system, what do you think helps you? My favorite question is, do you think it's
Yeah.
better to be single while you're actively competing? Or do you think that the support of a partner is best? What's your opinion
Yeah.
on that?
So my opinion, and I think that this will be good for our whole entire conversation, is I try to avoid being a teacher and telling people what to do. I hope that somehow that I can help people and teach people, but I can only offer my own opinion of myself and where I am. And I think that, everyone's a little bit different. So for me, single has been a problem for me.
Have been a
It's just,
problem.
yeah, single is just too many options, too many opportunities.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Oh
So
yeah.
there's, um, it's hard. It is very difficult to be single and to be focused. So I
Yeah.
can't,
I
I think that is definitely very possible.
Yeah.
And I actually did that for a while. And before I got into the relationship that I'm in now, which by the way, I'm in a relationship
Got it.
and a beautiful girlfriend, and she's amazing. She's very supportive. And I think that is a very, very important part of what I'm doing now and has helped me tons. But before I got into a relationship with her and got serious with her, I spent about a year where I was just in monk mode. And it was very hard for me, but I knew that being single and not chasing girls,
Mhm.
so to speak, that's what I needed to do. I also knew that was difficult, going to be difficult for me. So I didn't want to get into a relationship just to save myself,
Yeah.
right? Which that's kind of the idea of bad relationships, anyways. Is you're dependent on someone else for some reason,
Hmm.
right? For whatever reason, you're lonely or you feel incomplete by yourself. But for me, that my dependency to be with someone else would be to avoid being with all these other people, right? And being distracted or
Yeah. Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
So it was very hard for me to focus on that, but I did it for a good period of time, which leads to kind of like how this whole comeback thing happened. Was I just I got into a relationship,
Okay.
another relationship that was very serious. Got engaged with a girl. This girl was a good bit younger than me, so this is like after I'm married, and then a couple of years later, or I get divorced a couple of years later. Now this is kind of like my, in my 30s rebound with a super young hot chick, and getting serious there, and then we got engaged, and there was again there's signs of like this isn't right, this isn't quite right, but I'm gonna make it work,
Hmm.
right? And I thought that it was somehow my problem, my issue with commitment or something that
Okay.
I need to do
Yeah.
better. You see what I'm saying?
Hmm.
But something inside of me was really telling me that it wasn't the right situation. So it really just came to a point where um, I wasn't being fulfilled. Like my passion and my mission in life was really just was kind of just to make money, just to so we could have fun all the time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Travel around and do all this stuff, and like it was very meaningless,
Hmm.
right? I was kind of feeling like, man, this is kind of like life is good on paper. Like it kind of feels like, well, I'm just retired,
Yeah.
and like we just do whatever. And I was very successful,
But you always felt like you
but
wanted something more.
yeah, exactly. I needed it just didn't feel right,
Okay.
And so that's where I really started thinking about doing something, that involved fighting for one thing, but also I started to realize that, hey, 35, 36 years old, like I can still do that. I can still fight again. And like, I don't want to be old and say, hey, I could have done it longer, and I started to kind of face some deeper thoughts of like, you know, mortality and getting older and like thinking about my eye. And I really started thinking about it. And I'm like, man, what is it worth it to go to maybe lose your good eye? Is it worth it would it be worth it to really injure yourself some way or possibly die in there? And I'm like, and I really came to a point where I was like, man, I think that is part of being really fulfilled in life, is to have something that you'll die for. You know what I'm saying? And forget, having like an eye injury, and people always, that's always a big subject. And I just, at the point where I'm at now mentally, it's not really that big of a deal to me. It's like, if I do this and I lose my good eye, it's totally worth it. That's totally on me. That's a decision. That's a sacrifice that I make to be happy and to go, to go in the direction that I want to go
And to
in.
maybe feel like you're living the most of the years that you have in front of you versus just kind of shelter. How many years with two eyes, like versus amazing years with one eye, like, ooh,
Yeah, exactly.
A weird way to say it, but it's like, it's like we could die tomorrow, right? And then you have two eyeballs, but how many fights or memories did you make in that time frame?
Facts, yes. And so I became very familiar with that way of thinking.
That's such a powerful thing to hear from you, Alan, because I think it's that girly time of month. I'm so emotional right now, but I'm just like thinking about that feeling of like, sitting down and being like, how many times, and you said it, everyone always wants to talk to you about your eyeballs, because it is a big thing.
Yeah.
It's huge, and it's like we talked about in the beginning of the episode, you got to be a little crazy, or maybe you're not crazy, Alan. Maybe you're one of the few people that it's like, hey, everyone else is living these crazy protective little lives, but, I'm going to go out here and make the most of what I have. I like it.
That's what I feel. That's exactly how I feel about it. It's I'm big on having the personal freedom, and when I finally connected that with like my duty to raise my children, it was just an easy decision because I realized that the life that I was living was precisely the way that I'm raising them. Like that, what I'm doing is raising the kids. It's not what you tell them and what you teach them. It's what you do.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I'm saying? And I look at the way my dad operated and stuff, and I see a lot of the good that I got from him, and I see the bad I got from him, from the way he operated. Yeah. I don't remember hardly any talks that we had. I just behave like him. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, because you can't even not behave like him if you really tried in a way, because we see it at such a young age. I've got a lot of unfortunate traits from some of my upbringing that I'm like, damn you parents, but it's in there. So what are you going to do with it now? Good and bad.
Exactly. You get to a point where you hopefully are competent enough to then start to heal yourself. And then you realize that, okay, I'm healing myself, and now I can do this differently for my kids. Mm-hmm. And one of the things I really wanted to do for them is I wanted them to see me as a successful athlete. I wanted them to see me compete, see me go through the entire thing. Even like this last fight for the belts, for the championship, they've been seeing me approach this for the last 2 years and talk about it. And it's been the goal ever since. So I made it very clear to them in the beginning. I made a commitment, and a very hard thing to do was to tell my kids that I'm going to do this over the next couple of years. I'm going to win these fights and I'm going to win this belt. And I knew there was a chance of me losing or something, or it not going quite that way.
Yeah.
But I wanted to make that commitment. And it's just such a deeper thing. It's one thing when you post it on Facebook and or Instagram or something, you're like, okay, I've done said it. But whenever you really say it to your children and it's a spiritual thing, and it's like, this is going, it made me, act like a totally different way. So going into this last fight, I text my daughter. She seems a little bit indifferent about it, but I know that it really is.
How old is she?
She's just turned 13.
Oh, so yeah, she's indifferent to everything.
Yeah, she's kind of got her own thing going on here and there, but she has picked up. She's becoming very mature and very, she's starting to gain spirituality and stuff. And we connect in a lot of different ways. I think that not going back into this would, it's kind of like the recipe for that. I feel like of what's happened with her. My son is very connected because he's a super athlete. He really is just like a fanatic about all different sports. He knows so much about sports. He knows a lot about all different fighting, combat sports. And so he understands it. And so I text him like the day before the fight, and I'm like, hey, I'm nervous for this fight. And I was like, do you have any, like, what should I do? Do you have any advice?
How old is your son?
My son's 11.
Wow. Okay.
And so I wanted to give him like an opportunity to, to kind of I wanted to put a little pressure on him.
Yeah.
Because a lot of these fights, I'm like, hey, I'm gonna fight. I'm gonna text him. I'm gonna fight tomorrow because at least for a day or two, I'm not gonna see my kids probably before. So I'll say, hey, don't worry about me. I'm in the zone or whatever. But this time, going in this belt, I was like, I want to use this opportunity.
Yeah.
And so I said, I'm ready for this fight. I know I'm gonna win, but I'm nervous. Like, what should I do? And so he felt some pressure, like he needed to tell, you know what I mean? Like, it was important.
Dad's asking me something. Dad's about to fight. Yeah.
Yeah, man. And really what he texted me back was something that we talk about a lot. And I kept, and I used from that point on forward, I used that, in the day of the fight and kind of leading up to it and stuff. He said, don't think about the bad, think about the good.
That's adorable and also very intelligent for an 11-year-old. Wow. Like, great words from anyone, let alone your 11-year-old son. That's cute.
Exactly. So it's like all the teaching and everything is like, I was at that point, I was like, yes, that's what this is. That's what this is all about. I get this. This totally worked. And it actually helped me, get very focused and into a really high level mental spot that I've never got into before.
Wow.
And I actually needed it in the fight too, because I started a little slow and made some mistakes in the beginning, ended up getting hit in the eye and dropped and whatnot, and had to come back and win, which I would have loved to win clean, but I really appreciate that it went down like that. I feel like it was, I learned a lot about myself. And so anyways, I'll continue on that story. I told you it was a long one. But so I'm with this girl, and towards the end, I started to be less, spending more time alone. And that was very helpful, So sometimes when you're in a relationship, and I'm not like a relationship like person or anything. I'm just giving my experience.
Yeah.
Here.
Oh yeah.
Like from what I know about it and what I've experienced is these relationships you get very close with someone. And even when the relationship is rocky, it's still almost like there's something there where you're just so tied to them. And then you're arguing about like, okay, now we've been spending all this time together for a couple of years. And now, there's that whole codependency type of thing or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's like, you got to be really careful of that. So that's really what I needed. Was I needed time to where, it wasn't, I was able to be on my own and think clearly in terms of, what I needed. And I started to get clear on my ideas and start to think about fighting again, think about these changes that I really wanted to make. I knew that the businesses that I was doing although was making good money and things, was really just draining my energy, stressing me the hell out. And she just wasn't it. She wasn't the right fit. And and maybe it was, partially the relationship. What I didn't, like I said before, I wasn't intentional and develop it the way that I needed to lead it. So it was just very clear to me at that moment where I was just getting that message. I was like, there's a few things that you need to do. It's like an awareness of, like, when you become aware, and I'm really big on this mentality of, like, understanding that, like you said before, how most people live in this kind of fearful type of thing. It's it's almost like a reactive state. It's almost like I don't want to be like the woke person, but, like, it's like, a lot of people are kind of asleep, and it's a reactive state that you're in. And the first way that you get out of that, and I was there, and I, like, literally, I would get up early, because I had a lot of shit to do every day, and I would start pounding coffee, and I would just stay lit all day long on coffee. And, like, we were talking the other day in our call the other day, we were talking about substances and stuff. And I really think that I've done every type of drug and drink alcohol, and I had not necessarily a problem with alcohol, but I was consistently drinking alcohol almost every single day at that time. But I think that alcohol really poisoned me, and it did kind of bring me to a lower frequency for sure in the way that I operated. But, and then I needed the coffee to give me energy. And it's like, sometimes you got to be careful with these stimulants, and coffee is not, like, really strong coffee, and you're not paying attention to how much it is. You don't need, like, there's nothing wrong with drinking coffee, but I literally, I don't know what I was thinking before, but I was drinking way too much, and I was keeping my mind racing all day to escape from the life almost.
Of course. That's the very addictive person characteristics. I'm a sober person myself these days, but when I was getting sober, I caught myself, like, piling things onto my to-do list so that I would be so busy that I didn't drink. You know what I mean? Like, and it sounds like the way that you used to drink coffee is a very, addict style,
100%, 100%. So I couldn't sleep at night. So I used Xanax. And when I really needed to focus or try to light myself up, I would take Adderall. So, I mean, I've done all this stuff, man. And pills and alcohol and shit are, like, the worst. But, I
want to know how you ended the relationship and went from engaged, unfulfilled, to single life, before you met your current partner, and, like, what happened in between that period?
Yeah. So during this time that's what I'm kind of getting at, is, like, at this time, this is the way I'm thinking. And I become aware, like I said, of, like, I guess that was my point of saying that I was just, like, pounding coffee and drinking and stuff every day. Was like you're keeping yourself in a reactive state, stimulated or asleep or, on drugs or whatever, smoking weed every single day. And, then all of a sudden I gained this awareness of what I needed to do to change my life. And it was just, like, so clear to me. And I think that's, like, the first step. And if there's anyone that watches this that can get one thing for it, that's the most Like, you got to understand how to take these steps. And when you're living in this, just your life is chaotic, and you're unaware, and you're, you know, the first step is really just understanding what you need to do to change your life. Like, I need to do these things in order to change. Mm-hmm. And one of the things was break up with this girl. And so the last big thing that we did was I took this group to Tulum, Mexico. They used to do these retreats where I would take people, and ironically, I taught people and brought in speakers and stuff to teach people how to be successful mm-hmm. and how to grow personally and stuff, which is a lot of the reasons why one reason I stopped, kind of got out of that whole business, is because I wanted to fix myself, because I've always been really just very fascinated and wanted to gain knowledge on how to master the mind and how to develop yourself, and but we're all learning. I'm still learning now, so like we have this group there, and it was an excellent, supposed to be an excellent trip. Had some really good speakers and stuff. A lot of people paid good money to go there. We went to Tulum, but for me, it was the most stressful. I was the most anxious I had ever been. And it was just, I had too much stuff going on. And it was like, all of a sudden, like, oh shit, we're going to Mexico tomorrow. And now we got to put all these things together. And we had this big mansion. We had this big thing and all this, but it was just me and the girl at the time were just really on the rocks. It was not fun.
Yeah.
And at that time, I'm like, man, I'm here. And everything looks like, I should be, I'm trying to teach people personal growth and how to make money and how to, build their life. And we're here in this beautiful place and everything, but I'm miserable inside, and I have to make those changes. And I knew that one of the reasons I was so miserable is because I had become aware of these things that I needed to do, Mm-hmm. So I just stayed lit the whole time when I was down there, and just kind of got through it and partied and everything. Mm-hmm. But I knew the whole time that, like, coming back, my life was going to change. I took that on the plane ride back. I'm just in my head the whole time, just thinking, man, I gotta make these changes. So we got back home, and I called it quits with her and started to, go in that direction. And then everything just started changing tremendously. I sold my house. I found ways to exit my gyms, exit that business. Mm-hmm. And that provided me, I bought a camper.
Financial cushion to do whatever you wanted.
Yeah, exactly. So I was just like, all right, I'm just going to live in my camper and mm-hmm. work on myself, because, I just have high standards in my life. Mm-hmm. And I know that I need to put myself through this intense, like, monk mode. And then, so I just went delve in deep. So it was.
How long were you in monk mode for?
Do what?
How long were you in monk mode for?
For about 6 months. About 6 months, really intense.
Okay.
And then, at that time I was, probably between 6 months and a year, I met the girl that I'm dating now. And I was she'll tell you too, it was torture in the beginning, because I was so careful. And I was so defensive and so, mm-hmm. But it worked out, so, it's probably different for everybody, but for me, that was the right thing to do it very, very, very slowly, and I kept telling her, like, this is, it's going in the right direction.
Yeah.
Just, we have to do this very slow, and in that we've gained such a connection and such trust, by going so slow. Mm-hmm. And I don't think that her or I either have done that right before, so we're,
that's not the way that society says, you should do things. It's like, and nowadays it's like you have sex before you even learn someone's last names, it's a wild world out there, you know. It's not the way that you should, but it's the way things are going nowadays. So to just stop and go real slow, I'm sure your partner was like, "What the fuck are you?" You know, and you don't look like the kind of guy that's gonna be like, "Let's just go slow," you know.
Yeah, I know. And I think, you know, the main thing I was really slow about was just spending time with her. We only spend time together like once or twice a week or something, you know, if that really. And we really had, I mean, for probably the first 6 months or something was just like, you know, texting and talking every once in a while.
Well, I
You
don't
know,
blame
so I was
anybody who goes slow like that when you have children. Like, I don't have children,
yes,
so I don't know what it's like, but I know I would conduct myself way differently if I had kids in the picture.
yes,
So it's like, yeah, you got to
yeah,
vet someone for a long time because people don't show their true colors for a minute sometimes, you know?
yeah, yeah. And I'm, you know, I'm careful. I know that what I feel like I take responsibility for what goes, you know, what my children see and how it's going to
Mm,
possibly affect them. So, you know, yeah, I waited a good year before she even met my kids,
yeah.
you know. But
How long have you
yeah,
guys been together
I
now?
went, we've been together pretty much like we were just starting to date and stuff right when I did my first bare knuckle fight like 2 years ago.
Okay.
You know, so she's been there through the whole thing, you know, to you know, and that's been
So
been the goal and stuff. But yeah,
when you were in
yeah.
monk mode, just to clarify the timeline, because I'm just thinking about, you know, your awesome, you know, bare knuckle career so far, undefeated and being the heavyweight champ. And I'm like, were you monk mode, but it's still fighting at that time? Or were you not even competing in bare knuckle?
Um, no, yeah, I kind of yeah. I'm trying to think where oh, you know what? I still lived in my camper. Yeah, when I fought my first bare knuckle fight.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah. What a
yeah,
great story. What a great story in a short period of
yeah.
time.
Yeah. Actually, because where I kept my camper was right by the Coast Coliseum where I fought my first bare knuckle fight. So it was literally like just right across the street,
They're like, what hotel
you
did
know.
they put
So
you in? You're like, my camper.
exactly, I was napping in my camper, and then I just walked over to the venue, my very first one. So
Wow.
yeah, and then after that, I think I was like, all right, I'm done. That's about all I can take of the camper. I think
Yeah.
my something's telling me I got to get in a house. And also, I got to give props to my ex-wife too. She was very supportive in that time because my kids really didn't. I didn't. I spent a lot of time with my kids, like out and about, and going on trips and doing things, and they really didn't stay with me that much that time.
Yeah.
But you know, I just kind of told everybody in my life and stuff what I was doing. I was like, trust me, I have
Yeah.
a plan. I'm going and I'm just rebuilding myself. I don't like this. I feel like I've been going, you know, downhill, you know, with like who I am and for the last few years, and I'm going to have to build myself back up,
It's
you
so
know?
good. You mentioned
And,
something to me when we were speaking on the phone about meditation. You say you
uh,
meditate. The amount of meditation you told me, I was like, what? Jedi Master over here, because I really believe in meditation. It's just very hard for me. I haven't gotten into the flow of it. And
yeah.
yeah, tell us a little bit about the meditation and how it's helped you.
Yeah, meditation. Yeah, meditation has been really big for me, and I kind of stumbled upon it actually, because if you go back to the time like when I was living in the camper and stuff,
Hmm.
I wasn't necessarily meditating like I am now. I feel like I'm more, you know, I'm more versed in it now. I'm like a blue belt or something, you know.
I
I
like
guess you could. But you know, then what really got me into it was Wim Hof breathing.
okay.
And my friend Robbie, he's been huge in my whole my second part of my career and in the mental and the physical and stuff. He's a doctor in physical therapy,
Oh, nice.
and we both really are into experimenting with just anything that will help performance,
Yeah,
mental or physical. And there's no, you know, we kind of really don't separate those types of things, you
that's
know.
cool. That's
So
so cool.
we he really got me into the breath work.
Hmm.
You know, he got me into the breath work, and I was interested in the breath work and exploring spirituality and dabbling in that and whatnot, even back before the, maybe a year or so before it, because that's kind of where I was as I got out of that other relationship I told you about.
Mm-hmm.
I remember feeling like I feel like I want to explore spirituality. I think I've been thinking about this all differently. And I think that I want to, I started to learn more about, my brain, and I'm like, man, I think I got some issues I got to work on. I got, all this, and all that really just gave me confidence and just let me understand myself more.
Mm-hmm.
And when I did that Tulum trip, I brought in a guy that was like a breathwork specialist too. So so that was like my first, and I'm kind of like sitting back, kind of like, okay, yeah. And at that time, I still kind of felt like, there was a big part of me that felt like breath work and meditation and spirituality was kind of weird. And, kind of like, before I really went down that road.
Oh yeah.
And so now with my buddy Robbie, we really got into it. We got into a lot of different, ways of breathing and stuff. And I didn't really even connect them together, but I just stumbled into meditation by the breath work. And I started to realize that, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the Wim Hof method, but basically what you're doing is you're breathing in and out heavily in your nose, out your mouth. And then you hold it out. So it's like the method is in and out, in and out, in and out, in and out. You get a lot of oxygen, and then you blow it out.
Okay.
And then you hold.
Okay.
And on the hold, you hold it at first for like a minute or a minute and a half. And, the next round you do it a little bit longer. And then
you hold your breath for a minute and a half?
You not only hold your breath, but you hold it out. So when you blow, all right, so.
I'm like, can I even do that? I don't think
exhale. No. Yes. Yeah, you blow it out. Okay. So what happens is there's not any oxygen in your lungs. So when you go underwater in a pool, right, you breathe in. Yeah. You go under, and now the oxygen in your lungs is lasting longer.
Okay.
Now it's going from in your lungs into your bloodstream, right? So you blow it out, so all you got is what's in your bloodstream.
Okay.
So the Wim Hof practice, just like, so you have some base of like what I'm talking about is, you're oxidating your cells in your blood, and you're getting the oxygen in there. Then you blow it all out of your lungs. So what you have is what you have for your brain and your body. So, your practice is you're going to be able to get more oxygen, and you're going to be able to withstand this resistance and stuff. But something very interesting happens is you start to get thoughts of panic, just like if you held your breath under the water.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, fuck, I got to come up for the air. Right.
Yeah.
You can only last so long.
Yeah.
Right?
You're right.
You
panic.
You start to kind of. Yeah, you start to panic, and you start. So it's also a bit of stress tolerance and that type of thing.
Okay, so, a little light bulb just went off. I get it now. Okay, because where the two are connected, yes. I'm like, what the fuck does breathing? And then it's like the breath. The lack of oxygen induces a mental, state of panic, and that's where you actually are working on probably regulating that state.
Yeah,
you got it.
Yeah, and you're gonna get more. You get more efficient mentally and physically to where you can work up to the 4-minute plus rounds of holding it out. Okay. So, you're holding it out, and then I noticed that thinking doesn't help. It just, you know what I mean? So you tell yourself, relax.
Yeah.
Whatever. And then like, obviously, maybe you're thinking about relaxing. That's a little bit better, But if there's any external thoughts or any type of, stresses or whatever, those definitely don't happen. If you have some type of anxious thought, you're definitely not, you're going to need the oxygen much faster. Yeah. So what I started to realize was that your thoughts cause physical, I'm starting to make all these like light bulbs, like just like you did.
Yeah.
You just kind of go down that road.
Yeah.
You start to learn more about it. And I started to realize that when I move my fingers or adjust or like scratch my nose or anything, costs. There's a cost to it. Every movement, every physical movement, and every mental thought, there's a cost. So it's a practice, and I didn't even realize that I was meditating. But I just, as I started to, as an athlete, kind of go down. Well, I want to be able to hold my breath longer.
Yeah.
I accidentally taught myself that, okay, this is all about being still
Yeah.
and not thinking. And then as I started getting better, we would go into the 4 sessions. And then once you got to the end, you're releasing. So I'm not sure if you know this, but your lungs is one of 2 places in your body that releases DMT.
Oh, no, did not.
So you can really get yourself high from breathing.
Wow.
And so you're going these, 3 or 4 rounds in. At the end of the practice one day, on the last hold, that at the time was probably about like a 2.5 or 3 minute hold, I realized that something started to change. I started to, instead of just seeing darkness, it became something different, almost a dream. And I started to see a purple little thing. And so me and Robbie talked about it. So we're going down this road of months of discovery of this stuff, and not even really researching it that deeply. I probably would have learned it a lot faster if I read the book. But it's almost more powerful to like accidentally.
Yeah, organically.
So, he's like, man, have you noticed that you like see this little purple eye? And I was like, yes, you see the same thing, and it's like, you see all these tattoos and artwork and stuff with this eye, right? Or this pineal gland or whatever. It's almost, I almost feel like it's like you can see your pineal gland. But this is not just mumbo jumbo stuff. This is literally, if you look this up, you'll see that when you get into this deep meditation, you actually let go, you will see this purple dot. And the purple dot will then kind of turn into a dot with a circle around it. It kind of looks like an eye.
Okay.
And then that develops more into more movement, jellyfish type of thing. And then that will develop into just, if you can let go enough and go into that meditation,
wow,
you can experience like a lucid dreaming.
That's amazing.
So while you're awake, you're meditating, but now you're experiencing visual dreams.
Wow.
And I've seen like some really crazy stuff. So going down that was like, okay, man, I realized that now I can induce meditation. Right. But you can't necessarily all the time go through all this breathing and stuff to get yourself centered like that. Right. Although I think that if you did that every morning, that would be a great way to get yourself kind of centered for the whole day. But I started to realize that definitely after I got myself there, then your peace and your calm and your ability to think clearly, for an ADD person, it was just like, wow, this is what I've been wanting my whole life.
Yeah.
I can think clearly and I can make decisions. And so then I started to realize that, okay, because I used to be just like you. And I said, I was like, I've tried meditation, but I can't really get into it and that. And it's like, looking back at it, I'm like, dummy, that's what meditation is. Like when you sit down and you close your eyes and you try to be still, you are going to, it's a different type of suffering. It's just like if somebody said, I've tried running, but I get out of breath and my legs burn. And it's like, that's the point. That's the practice of it.
Yeah.
And guess what? If you keep doing it, you'll be able to go further and you'll be more comfortable in it and that type of thing. So, that's kind of what meditation is. It's like you sit down and you just try to pay attention to your brain, because your brain, this is one way I think of it, is like your brain, when they operate on people's brain, you can't feel, it doesn't have like feeling, So I think when I'm meditating, I'm trying to kind of feel and see what's going on up here.
Yeah. I actually recently got, the UFC gave me, it's a device called the Core. Have you heard of it?
Mm-mm.
It is a little ball and it vibrates and it's connected to like an app and whatnot. You put your headphones on and you sit in your comfortable position, and it allows you, for someone like me especially, you know, like my wandering thoughts, it basically helps you focus on the vibration. And that's the only time I've ever felt truly like in a meditative state, where afterwards, like the little device will be like, and you're done, and then I'm like, no, I just want to stay here. And I just stay there, and I'll just sit there, and I feel like in another state. And I'm like, that's only happened twice maybe. And I feel like that's true meditation. And I'm like, that shit is hard. I needed a device and headphones and the right, you know, setting and everything. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. No, that's perfect. I think that, I'm familiar with stuff like that. Like, I think, the vibration, sound therapy. Like I have some speakers that are like sound therapy speakers, and I have all the bowls and stuff. I have all the like hippie shit.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you're all into all of it.
Yeah. I really am. But those types of things are like, think of it like, you know, vibrating, the breathing, the sound. Those are like things that will help you, or like say drugs, like mushrooms or something. Mm-hmm. These are like ways that you can get somewhere and experience it, so that you'll then be aware of like what it is that you're trying to achieve. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what it is. You're probably just, you know, kind of like you're working on your attention, like you're kind of ADD.
Yeah. And it's
like,
I started microdosing, and I feel like, I don't know if that is, you know, part of your you know, you say you don't do anything anymore, but I do smoke weed, and I do, you know, microdosing. And I feel like that has been more of like a medicinal use. I know everyone's like, yeah, marijuana, medicinal. And I'm like, okay. But the mushrooms for sure, and the microdosing, like a medicinal. And, you know, what are your thoughts on microdosing?
I think it's a good thing. You know, so I definitely have done that especially during that monk mode period. Like I really experimented a lot with mushrooms and learned how often to take them and that type of thing. But I think what changed for me was kind of realizing that, I don't know, almost like you want to have like a fix for something that's like instantaneous sometimes. So like, I just think that, you know, if you're looking for something to fix your issue that you have that day, but you're not long-term fixing it for good or fixing baseline, you know. So I think that the microdosing can have like long-term effect for sure. Okay. But I think the trend with it is kind of like taking a pill, like for today and while you're using it. So I think that people just got to be, you know, careful about how they look at it and what they're fixing or whatever. Like with the psychedelics, I feel like you know, the biggest changes have not come from just taking a little bit every day, but taking a big amount one time and then experiencing something that is so different that it can change the whole way that you look at life. And that, because, you know, but I mean, also that's just my own experience. And that, like I said before, when you're hard-headed, you have a big ego, it might take a little bit more to be like, wake up, everything is not like you think it is.
Yeah.
You know, so that's, you know, I've had some big, so like fast forward to where I am now, I don't take mushrooms every day or anything like that. I definitely have, you know, I think with being kind of like a addictive personality, having ADD, and it's like I always struggle with whatever I'm doing. I'll just get kind of obsessed with it. Kind of do, yeah, exactly. I do that now with coffee. I do that with weed. I do, you know, so it's like I start to use it too much, and then I have to back off or whatever. But you know, I'm happy with that. I've learned how to balance it out. Well, whatever.
I gotta circle back to the relationship aspects, because I really love the transformation, you know, the meditation, everything. And, you know, that just changes you like as a person, you know, not just as a partner. And so I'm just kind of wondering, you know, how did you and your partner now meet? And, just kind of explain a little bit about the current relationship, because I feel like that's so different than the ones you've described in the past, because we grow every year, let alone every 5-10 years, like I can't even, I would have not wished Ashley 10 years ago on anybody, so,
Yeah.
but, so yeah, go into a little bit about your relationship now, if you can.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So like the girl that I'm with now, like back when I first met her, back when I had a gym and she brought her kids to the gym. So like we've always had kind of like some type of we've known each other. And like the area that I live in is kind of small too. So it's like we've known each other for a long time. So during this period, I was very careful about like going out or even using social media and that type of thing. But for whatever reason, when I had Instagram on my phone one day, and I don't even remember ever really having any type of social media contact with her at all or anything. But I just saw her on there, and I just had this like, kind of just intuition of just like, man, I feel like that me and her have some time. I almost like what I have gone through made me kind of understand her, the way that I looked at her before, to now. I'm like, oh, okay. And, that I feel like that happens in your life, where you're like, the way that you judge people or judge someone or whatever. And you're like, oh, I get this person now.
Yeah.
And she's very beautiful and she's cool. And she's very beautiful, has a lot of tattoos. So she's very attractive, and, so we really just started talking and just develop from there. I feel like
it's good to hear that she knew you before the monk phase. I love that we call it the monk phase. She knew you before the monk phase. She knew, like, I don't know, you probably told her about the monk phase and then, and afterwards. So it's such a great, my partner now, we've been together for over 3 years, but we knew each other, same situation from the mixed martial arts world. And he knew like, oh, Ashley's a little crazy. Heard some stories, but now it's like, it's so great because when we go through things, I don't have to explain like who I used to be to that and he just understands. So I'm like listening to your story and I'm like, it's good that she like sees the evolution of Alan.
Oh yeah, 100%. And I think her and I both, from the very start, we have this like thing with being completely honest with each other. And that's probably the most powerful part about our relationship, and that I've never really felt like in any other relationship that I was completely myself and completely, could do this whole thing. And I think a lot of it is like just committing to completely like taking responsibility for everything and changing and working on yourself. I don't have anything to hide because I am growing from who I used to be to a new person, and so she's been there to witness that, and she's been very supportive from the very get-go, so yeah, her support is just,
I love that,
is awesome. But she has never given me any type of negativity, any kind of negative. She always just brings like a positive thing. And coming out of that monk mode was like I wasn't going to accept any type of I didn't want to get into a relationship. Honestly. I had started to develop this kind of way of thinking of just like, man, maybe I'll just be single forever. Maybe I'll just, I got that way of thinking. So, and that's what I was explaining earlier about taking it slow, was like I was I kind of already got my mindset and like, no, I'm not going to be in serious relationships.
That's
And then
always how it
who knows?
works, Alan. That's always how it
Yeah,
works. It's like as soon as you have mastered yourself, that's exactly what happened with me. I got sober. I was 4 months sober, just running 8 miles a day. Not quite, I was still at the
yeah,
stay busy, kill yourself mode, but I've graduated from that. But, and then here comes my boyfriend walking into my life, and I'm like, no, I am on this path, but when the love is right, and when you're at that, self, that growth start of your life, and then
yeah,
you find the relationship, like and that person is positive, it's like
yeah.
fertilizer on the new you, it's only a good thing.
Right. Right. And you both earned it too,
Hmm.
right? In a way, like you didn't give him all this stuff that you worked on. I'm sure that it was like, it's not easy. What you had kind of built and turned yourself into, and you're proud of that. You don't want to just go back down the road that you were before.
Yeah.
So you wanted to make sure that it was the right move,
For
right?
sure. I understand where you were at that point in your life. You were like, wait a
Yeah.
second, I'm ready to do me, but you coming into my life might affect my plan of,
Yeah.
self-discovery and bettering my life and whatnot. But I'm happy that it's working out for you.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, no, yeah. Thanks for sharing that too. That's cool. We went through
Hmm.
kind of the same thing. I
Yeah.
think that's pretty common, and that's
Hmm.
like, you know, that's where you see. I feel like real truth is whenever it's like this happens. It's not always exactly the same, but I mean, there's something to it.
I
You
mean,
work on yourself.
yep.
You become single, and it's like,
Hmm.
I mean, that's
What you
seems
attract,
like the most healthy way to do it.
it's like you and I probably were both radiating this very self-sufficient, happy energy, and that attracts people, I think, and so then you get that cycle of like, damn, I just got on my own. I was just happy, and then I met someone, and you're still happy. That's not what I'm saying, but you think you're
Yeah,
like, okay, I'm okay being single, and once you've like mastered your own mind, and then in comes that person, yeah. Well,
yeah,
let's
let's do
um
it.
let's
Cool.
end this with some fan questions. So for those of you watching and listening, and you're not going to follow us to the UFC Fight Pass platform, you suck. But no, not that's that. Please, Alan, where can they find you on all your social media? And then what do you even talk about when your next bare knuckle fight is? When you're going to defend the belt?
Oh yeah, we didn't hardly talk about
Wow.
fighting at all, honestly, which is
It's all
cool.
good.
I don't know. I don't know. Possibly July. I had a 4 fight contract with BKFC, so we're negotiating now. So it's just I'm in the phase now where it's like money time. It's payday. It's
Hmm.
big payday time. I went through a lot in the last 2 years. I'm definitely not coasting. I need a new big goal. So I'm really interested in continuing boxing too, which I know we didn't talk about that much, but it's like I've I fought 4 times in bare knuckle, but I also had 5 boxing matches in the last 2 years too. So like
Okay.
I've on a 9 fight win streak. So really, um, I'm really interested in doing some big boxing matches
Mm,
too. So I got
yeah.
a bare knuckle belt, and so the future for me is defending the bare knuckle belt and winning more belts in boxing. And if the money makes sense and everything, doing MMA or something, to kind of
Wow.
put a little
Oh
icing on
shit.
the cake.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I like it. And then any of your social media handles that you want to shout out?
Just Alan Belcher official on Instagram and Twitter, and yeah.
All the rest of those things. All right, cool. Let's get to
Yeah, I
these.
think I don't have all the handles are the same, but I think you can find me if it's Alan
Yeah.
Belcher.
It's out there, guys. And I stick all your handles down below in the show notes as well. All right, guys, that's it for episode 134 with Alan, the talent Belcher. Very insightful, very philosophical type of conversation, different than what we normally have. And I appreciate that. It actually reminded me a little bit of the Bruce Leroy, Alex Caceres interview a little bit, where we talk about a little more, it's a little deeper, not just, surface level experiences. And so it was really great to get to know Alan, and I hope you guys like this episode. Next week, we have an interesting guest. We always do combat sports athletes, but I try very hard to mix it up for you guys. Sometimes I'll have an actor or adult film star, musician. Next week, we have a mental coach, a mindset coach. His name is Mindset Mike. Mike Moore is his name. But if you want to check him out on social media, it's at mindset_Mike. His little bio is pretty interesting. He's a former FBI and certified crisis negotiator turned mindset coach to top athletes, teams, UFC champions, and businesses. I'm really excited because he's a former wrestler who actually has a website called wrestlingmindset.com, created by wrestlers for wrestlers. That's my background, and so I always resonate very well with wrestlers. I can't wait to have him on the show, pick his brain. I'm getting back into the cage in the near future, so this will be good for me as well as you guys. Tune into that, and please don't forget to always check out our website and buy some merch, or email the podcast if you want, and those links are sexviolencewithrebelgirl.com or sexandviolencepodcast@gmail.com. And lastly, you can always check out my exclusive site. It is called ashleyrebelgirl.com, and don't forget to rate and review the show. It's very, very, very easy. You can just go to your Apple, pause this show real quick, click in the right-hand corner for the plus sign, boom, and you're good to go. That is it. Special thank you to DJ Zol, who's here every week with me. You can hear him in the background. Say hi, Zol.
Hey.
At DJ Zol on social media, Tomorrow Kids Studio at Tomorrow Kids Official on social media, and myself at Ashley MMA. And if you want to follow the podcast page, it's just at Sex and Violence with Rebel Girl, spelt out. Thank you guys again. Remember, be kind, be grateful, but don't take shit from anyone. I'll talk to you guys next week with a new guest and more tales of sex and violence.